Very exciting day. We have one of our very favorite people here with us. Everyone, welcome to Fated Mates. I'm Sarah McLean. I read romance novels and I write them.
I'm Jennifer Prokop, a romance reader and editor. And with us today is... Introduce yourself.
I'm Joanna. I'm Joanna Shupe.
I'm like, you do it. It's fine.
I feel so honored. Like I've been here enough that I don't need an introduction. I love it.
No, well, we love you very much. And Joanna Shupe is not just Joanna Shupe, you all know, because she is also Mila Finelli. And we are very proud to have been the place where Joanna
that's
and
true.
Mila
That's right.
The big reveal.
The big reveal. It was pretty great. Mila came out wearing a mustache.
This is at Fated Mates Live in 2023.
Yes, it was a gag perfect for the audio medium.
Exactly.
I feel like. But it worked. It worked in person, I think.
It's true. And then we introduced Mila, and then she revealed herself to gasps from the audience as Joanna Shupe. But we feel like we've talked a lot. We've done a deep dive of Joanna's books. We talk about Joanna's books all the time. We talk about Mila's books all the time. So you all, it really is one of those situations where you don't need an introduction. But if I were to give you the introduction, I would say Joanna Shupe / Mila Finelli, whose books are consistently bangers.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. I have poison ivy. I'm ready to go.
That's not a euphemism, everybody. She actually has poison ivy.
Covered in poison ivy. I feel like it's making me really feisty, so I'm ready to go.
Good. No, perfect. Now you're ready for Fated Mates. One of the things, you've had a big summer because you're here to talk about your new historical, The Gilded Heiress, which we're going to talk about in a minute, but you also released a Mila book this summer. So you've had like 2 books come out in the same summer, stop being such an overachiever. But we're going to talk about The Gilded Heiress, I promise. But I'm really interested in, now that you've been doing both for a while, how do you see the intersection of like, is there like sort of a Venn diagram that, like, there are things that don't overlap, and then there are things that do?
First, I don't recommend releasing. I don't recommend ever doing what I did to anyone. I mean, this summer has been, it's been pretty crazy. And summer's my busiest time anyway, because I'm on the road with my daughter's travel softball team. So it's like, it just has really been bananas.
Getting poison ivy.
Getting poison ivy.
The glamorous life of 2 authors.
So glamorous. It's interesting because there's not a lot of overlap between the 2 reader groups, I find.
Really? Even now?
Well, once people find out, they are like, oh, I'll have to check that out, or oh, really? Or then they get excited because it's like they have more books.
Yeah, right. By a beloved author. Right.
Right. Like a backlist that they can go check out on either side. But I really do find that they are there's not a huge overlap.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the Mila people skew a little younger. I have a lot of readers from other countries, all over the world, whereas Shupe feels maybe not as international and a little older, but that's just my own, that's anecdotal nonsense. I mean, I don't know whether that's true or not, but based on who comes into the mailing list, that's sort of what I've seen.
Okay, so that's true of the readers, but what about you? Like, do you think that there's overlap between these, like when you think about yourself and like the things you're interested in writing, for example, or obviously they're both you, right?
Well, and we're here today to talk about like my favorite thing in romance, which is like criminals and noble scoundrels. Like, I do feel like that is the cornerstone.
I was trying to lead her there,
I know,
Sarah, but you were just like, let me tell everybody.
That's the topic. It's fine. We don't have to dance around it.
Right.
There's very few people, I think, in the industry who love a criminal the way you and I love a criminal.
Right. I mean, that's really the backbone of Shupe's whole oeuvre is, I mean, none of those tycoons were good people, as we can all see now, like that much wealth in one person. But yeah, so for me, it's always been the redemption arc of the criminal, of the bad guy, the wealthy asshole.
Right. Suffer. Make them suffer.
Yes. Yeah.
But it's interesting, right? Because I think, so I've been talking a lot recently about this, like how I have recently come to understand, like, my core story is constantly thinking about characters who are born into nobility versus characters who live a noble life, like who act with nobility, and how those two things are not the same. In fact, often, like in our cases, I think we have both written a lot of criminals who who do crime, but do it right, do it with nobility. And so I wonder if you could talk a little bit about the balance of writing contemporary criminals versus.
Well, I think you have to find redeeming qualities about them and sort of exploit them as much as you can. But they, yes, they're terrible people. And the hope is that through the heroine's eyes and through the journey of this person falling in love, that they can become likable. I don't know that they don't become good people or people you'd want to know, but I think that's part of the challenge of writing the contemporary side. The historical, I feel like you can get away with a little more wackiness and a little more, you could play with it a little bit more.
Yeah.
But contemporary has to be grounded a little bit more in reality. So for me, setting them in Italy helps, I think,
Mm-hmm.
and having them be actual, the reality of it is that is a real mafia group that exists. Like, it's not something I made up, and there's a hierarchy and there's a whole world behind it. But then I can play with it as much as I want within that structure.
Mm-hmm.
I think is how I come at it.
Romance has always loved a criminal, right? Like, especially, but like a kind of criminal where it's like property crimes, what I would consider, right? Like Robin Hood, right? Like, we all love Robin Hood, or like those types of stories versus like crimes against people. But I think the other thing I was thinking about a lot was in Justine's book, which is one of my favorites. She thinks she wants to be a cop. And I think one of the other things that I find really interesting in your books is that how explicit it is that, like, these are just people are doing crimes on both sides.
Mm-hmm.
It's just right, like the cops, and in Italy, for example, in the first book, were like setting up her father, or right, like, so I think the other thing that I found is really useful is if it's just like good guys, bad guys, and the good guys are like default the cops, which is what it was in a lot of romance for a long time, to explicitly name, like, like, no, in fact, there is a history of crime in which the cops are just the others doing crimes of a different kind on the other side. Right. So
Right.
I think that is something that then makes it a lot easier to sort of, I don't know, like, I think it by removing that like binary,
Mm-hmm.
that like all criminals are bad guys, the law is always good and right. Like, that's such a, I don't know, like a lot of legal things are actually highly immoral.
Yes.
So,
yeah. And
right?
I think the more you see of the world, that there are quote unquote good people doing bad things. I mean, there really is there's nobody who is above corruption. There's nobody that, so yes, that, especially in Italy, they're always bribing the local police. And So that does make it easier because it's just shades of gray at that point.
Mm-hmm. So one of the things that I'm really interested in your book, so obviously we're here to talk about a very particular kind of book, and we're going to get into why those books work so well, which is, a big piece of this puzzle. But I want to talk about what's going on in the real world right now and your TikToks / newsletters / Instagram videos, because I think immediately following the election, so many of us were like, what do we do? Right? How do we combat this? How do we stand up? What do we say that's not just part of the noise? And I think you instantly honed in on what we are doing now, what is happening today has happened before. And so while I am constantly telling people to subscribe to your newsletter and to follow you on social media. But one of the things that I think is really interesting is watching your videos makes me always feel like, okay, we've been here before. Like, is there, maybe we can survive it. Right? And so I wonder, could you talk a little bit about the work of why you chose this path as Joanna Shupe and also the work of it?
Everything that was coming out post-election, I was like, yep, I know that. I know this playbook. I got that. Yep, we've had that. Yeah. And so it all felt very familiar.
Yep.
From the extreme wealth to the tariffs to the political corruption to, I mean, I could just go on the immigration, the dog whistles, the immigration, the rolling back the reproductive rights for women. It's all so interconnected, and it's just a playbook we have seen before.
Mm-hmm.
Now, on some level, it does make me feel better because, we evolved. We got to the point of the Civil Rights Act. They taxed the rich. We had the boom of the middle class. But first of all, it's depressing that no lessons were learned.
Correct.
So it's a little sad. But also, it didn't work out for everybody. I mean, we have, decades of Jim Crow in the South, where horrific violence is committed against African Americans. We have, women who probably died from no longer being able to get reproductive care. We have the whole rise of the eugenics movement, which leads to what happens in Nazi Germany. So, queer people being persecuted. A lot of people weren't okay. So on some level, it makes me very fearful for the rabbit hole that I know can easily spin from where we are now. Easily. So I do feel sort of obligated to point out, like, hey, I know you're hearing a lot about tariffs. Let me tell you about tariffs from, whatever. I know you're hearing a lot about, like, the one that I just put out yesterday was about this all-white community that they've started in Arkansas.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Which is based on an all-white community in South Africa. And so on some level, it feels like, oh, that's a terrible thing, which it is, and I expect it to be challenged in court. But, with sundown towns and redlining and racist covenants, I mean, we've seen how these all-white towns were created, in the 1910s, 20s, 30s, up until the Fair Housing Act in the 60s. I mean, so that was what yesterday's newsletter was about.
I mean, and these are things, like, to be honest, and everybody listen, if you are like, I don't know what those things are. I mean, it is okay to, like, sort of say that and, like, then go learn, right? Like, these are things that often are not taught in schools because, like for whatever, I mean, we can get into the why, but, so like white people are very bad about talking about like
Right.
a racist history that benefited them. It just sort of like, well, so, like sundown towns essentially were like places all throughout our country where essentially very wealthy people had black maids and domestics in the house, and then they like had to leave town by the time it got dark, or else the Klan would sort of pick them up. And these are, you could find lists of these online, like they are all over our country. This is not just, I think another
and
thing
also
that often
not
happens
just in the South.
Oh, they were
Correct.
mostly in the North.
Yeah.
In the
Mostly, right.
Midwest, actually.
Right. And, or redlining, right? Like sort of the banks drew maps about where Black people could live, and then like essentially funded home loans differently in different places. So these are things that are so hidden in a lot of schools that white people go to, that the reason that they can all get repeated and these same things can happen is because people don't even know. I mean, I think I've told this story maybe or maybe not on the podcast. Like one of my son's friends grew up in Grosse Pointe, Michigan, which is kind of famously one of the most redlined parts of like the world. It's literally like there's a wall between it and Detroit, and she grew up there, and I sort of mentioned redlining once, and she's like, I don't know what that is. And I was like, but how is that possible? You would not know. It defines redlining almost, right? So, if you don't know, we will put some links in show notes. We'll put links to Joanna's things, but if you don't know, now is the time to listen and learn, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's no lessons learned by where we've been in history that's purposeful. They've hidden a lot of this stuff in history class because they are ashamed to talk about it.
One of the things I've been really worried about and thinking about a lot about in relationship to the world in general, and I've been watching the kind of decline of historical, and the argument that like historical is declining for a million different reasons, right? But it's interesting because I do think historical is one of those places in romance where some of us, and I would say a significant number of us now, are doing this work, like talking about this history, the history of the Gilded Age, the history of the robber barons, the history of, police brutality and police corruption, the history of women's reproductive rights, the history of all of these things. And so I worry, of course, that like as we lose, I learned, for example, about a lot of Reconstruction era United States in my like white town in Rhode Island from Beverly Jenkins. Like,
right.
I just did, right? And so I worry about the way that romance is sort of no longer digging deep into these issues and producing a book that is about something more than two people kissing. Do you feel like when you sit down to your historicals, you're like thinking about that now?
I mean, yes. To be honest, when I wrote The Gilded Heiress, I was like, okay, we are not writing anybody who is, titled. We're not writing anybody who is rich. And I'm just there. I'm not usually with every book I write, there's like an overarching issue that I want to dig down into, either the Chinese Exclusionary Act or, women's reproductive rights, blah, blah, blah. And this one, I was like, I'm not. Like, this is going to be just a fun sort of adventure story with these two people who are both like trying to find a family and just found family and coming from the backgrounds they come from, very lower class. There was no real issue that I was going to dig into.
Yeah, but then you delivered an issue, right? Like the wealth is there.
Class is, yeah.
Okay,
right.
Good. I believe you. I believe you. Yeah, that's true.
The thing that's always really interesting to me about reading historical is, even if that is the case, right, the kinds of ways that we like interact with our siblings, or the lists of, you know, things that we're supposed to do or not do, the expectations on women or girls in a family versus boys in a family, right? Like all of that stuff in some ways I remember, and I think it is in this book too, like feeling very kind of moved by the idea that like, okay, listen, for hundreds of years, girls have been like, but wait, why does my brother have to do anything? You know what I mean? Or right, or whatever. And so I do think that even when it's not doing a big thing, I think it is still doing a thing, which is like reminding us that there's a lot of ways in which we're still fighting. The forces of society are slow to change.
Well, it's interesting, right? Because I think both Joanna and I have received over the years like many notes from readers or reviews from readers that say, this is historically inaccurate. These heroines would never do fill in the blank, right?
Right.
And I think like there are two things going on there. One is you are not paying attention to history because I've never written anything that I haven't been able to prove happened in the past, right? But I think the other piece of it is like what you want the what you want the past to have been is not, you want it to be white. You want it to be super gendered. You want it to be regressive and conservative, right? And I think when readers come to historical and they don't get that, there is a real sense of like, well, what are these writers trying to do? Why are they trying to stick politics into my books? This week's episode of Fated Mates is sponsored by Amy Andrews, Pippa Roscoe, Rachel Stewart, and Claire Connolly, authors of the Karma Club series.
Okay, I love this. When fate strands 4 complete strangers at O'Hare Airport during a snowstorm. Sadly, that could happen, everybody. Little do they know their misfortune is about to turn into the ultimate opportunity for payback. Fueled by Prosecco and the last reading table in the entire airport, these 4 women bond over shared tales of heartbreak and betrayal. And you will get each of their stories in one of these books written by these authors. So the Karma Club, essentially, they commiserate over their exes and they form a daring plan to turn the tables on the men who wronged them.
I love this, obviously.
So they essentially concoct a scheme to exact sweet revenge. They're going to expose a cheat or take down a Peter Pan with commitment issues.
Perfect.
These ladies are prepared to serve up justice with a side of sass, but as they dive deeper, they soon realize that their carefully crafted schemes may have unforeseen consequences, most notably love. So over the course of the year that the books take place over, they will discover the true meaning of friendship, love, and the power of forgiveness. And, of course, many romantic twists and turns and unexpected happily ever afters.
Well, if you love this idea of a bunch of shenanigans, revenge shenanigans, then you're going to love the Karma Club. The most recent book in the series is The Payback Plan, which is a brand new spicy revenge romance from Amy Andrews. If you want more information about the Karma Club, you can click on the chapter title right now to be taken to buy the book. But all 4 of the books are available right now in Kindle Unlimited. Thanks to Amy Andrews, Pippa Roscoe, Rachel Stewart, and Claire Connolly for sponsoring this week's episode. So let's get into why historicals and contemporaries, but I think that it's trickier in contemporary, right? Like we see a lot of criminals in contemporary who are living outside of like a moral compass, right? But I think I'm interested in, particularly in the Gilded Heiress and in other historicals. I want to talk about these heroes who are criminals, right? Because I think they come from a long line of like historical criminals, right? Like there's a reason why we love a highwayman.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a reason why we love a pirate. Like there are, but these are like rogues, right? Like, and so I wonder, could we talk a little bit about like the appeal of the criminal, the rogue? historically.
scoundrel.
The scoundrel.
The scoundrel.
But like a real, like people who do crime. I will tell you that initially, that on our schedule of like, we keep everybody, surprise, we do, despite all appearances, we do actually keep a schedule of what we're recording on this podcast. And here we have a list. We have you on the podcast, and it says Joanna Shupe, parentheses, tariffs, question mark. Because we were like, at some point you did a thing about tariffs, and then I was like, wait a second, like that's what we've been like. I've written smugglers. I wrote a whole series about smugglers, and they were doing it because of tariffs. I mean, guess what's not sexy?
Tariffs.
That's why there was a question mark, everybody.
Exactly. So I wonder, this is the thing, right? Like our criminals do crime for a political reason. Maybe small p political.
I mean, on some level, you want to see somebody from the outside stick it to the establishment. I mean,
yeah,
I think
I would agree with that. Right?
Yeah, we like to see like the establishment taken down a couple pegs, the police taken down a couple pegs, the Robin Hood, rich people taken down a couple pegs.
Even interestingly, I was thinking about Bow Street Runners. Like I was thinking about Lisa Kleypas's series. And even Bow Street Runners feel like outside of cops in some way, right? Because they were vigilante justice in a certain, like once you get into Scotland Yard, very few people touch that without blowing it up.
Right. And because your hands are tied. So the Bow Street Runners are able to sort of work outside the law, bend the rules.
Yeah. Or it's Felicia Grossman's like Pinkertons.
Mm-hmm. It's a little bit competence porn, maybe. Like they can do anything.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah.
If you're sort of bound by the rules, that's pretty unsexy and boring.
Yeah.
Well, and I often think that's like part of the profile of these guys is like they tried to do it on the straight and narrow, but washed out because they were a scoundrel. Right? And now they have no chance. They have no choice but to be a Bow Street Runner.
They were born into crime.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
We love a lock picker, a lock pick.
Yeah.
Sure.
We love a jewel thief.
Heist.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, anybody with special skills, perhaps involving their hands.
Do you think this is an American thing?
Why?
Do you think this is culturally American, this appeal? I asked this, I mean, I don't have an answer to this. I'm literally I just had this question in my head right now because it feels like, is it like Lone Ranger? Like a man on an island? Maybe the three of us are not qualified to answer this as like two Midwesterners and a Rhode Islander. But I guess the mafia exists, right?
I mean, those characters are popular in popular culture. The sort of, he can't be bound by...
Right, John Wick. You killed his dog, and now what the fuck?
Right.
He has no choice but to kill everybody else. The entire world must go down because that dog.
Americans, I think we like to think of ourselves as rebels. We don't play by the rules. We're
mavericks.
Yeah, right.
Well, and look where it got us.
Look where it got us. Yeah. There's the wild, wild west.
Elsewhere, Jen.
Oh,
okay.
My God.
Great reference.
I love him so much.
Love him.
Why do I love him so much? He's the worst.
Worst. But we love him.
Oh, my God. Or is it just that, like, everybody who ends up writing historicals and loving historicals just needs to go to the same therapist?
Romance therapist. Could you imagine if there was a romance therapist?
Oh, my God. They would be in business forever.
Amazing. Okay. Tell us about the Gilded Heiress then. Tell us about Leo and Josie.
Yeah, the premise from the book is an Anastasia retelling set in the Gilded Age. I really wanted to get outside of New York, so for like a hot minute, they're in Boston. Because
And then you went right back into New
And I
York.
went
Like, I gotta get back. I gotta get back.
It's like no offense, Boston, but this is enough. But I really wanted to explore, early Broadway, early vaudeville. I wanted her to have a special talent, so she is a fantastic singer. Again, they could not be wealthy. They had to be sort of these scrappy, make your way in the world. Josie is an orphan. She doesn't know who her, raised in an orphanage, doesn't know her family, and goes out on the street to sing for money. And Leo has a family, but is, after the death of his father, they're raised very sort of lower classes, had to always struggle for money. He ran with a bunch of boys on the street, learned how to basically con people, and sees her on the street and thinks of a scheme where he can possibly make some money and also get revenge on the family that really screwed over his family. So,
you didn't think like, oh, I'm going to tell a story about, but maybe it's impossible for you not to tell a story about, right? But I think that this class issue is real fascinating because Leo's father died penniless, unable to work because of a very clear injustice. This wealthy family thought he had taken this essentially the Lindbergh baby, right? Had kidnapped
Right.
a child.
Right.
And so he became unemployable. Like he couldn't find work. He was destroyed, and there's no evidence.
No retirement. There's no pension. There's no retirement. There's no social safety net.
So this is why Leo becomes so forgivable as a con artist, right? Is like he's the eldest son of a man who has been ruined by injustice. So we forgive him for all of it. Listen,
and he's got 5 or 6 sisters to support.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Like he's the one taking care of
just the best man. Con artist, whatever. Saving his sisters. Being great at going down.
Always. That's
Sarah just has a very specific type, everybody, and Joanna knows exactly how to write it. And here we are in the middle of it.
That's the only kind of hero I want.
Exactly. Deeply noble, loves his sisters, likes to have a meal.
One of the funny things about Faded Mates Live in St. Louis is someone said, you guys should record yourselves. And I was like a video. And I was like, why would we do that? And they're like, well, I didn't really realize just how specific your faces were when Sarah said the things she said until now. And I was like, okay, fair. Okay, so that's Leo. And so basically he hears Josie singing and sees this as an opportunity to sort of what I liked about this scene was this sense of, and I feel like it's true of a lot of good, noble criminals, they've got a bunch of irons in the fire, a bunch of things they're trying to get done. And then there are times when something happens and essentially everything just clicks into place, right? So something about hearing her sing allows him to kind of all of a sudden a lot of disparate things kind of lock into place, and he can see a path forward by which he can achieve everything he wants. And the only trick is going to be that she can't know that he essentially is using her, right?
Yeah, he's conning her too, because doesn't he say
right,
he wants to take her to make her a star in New York? But it's because he recognizes or he sees that there's a familial resemblance.
Right. And he can get his hands on the reward money for the missing this family who lost their child decades before has still offered this ginormous reward for her return, and he thinks he can pass Josie off as this missing heiress, and basically fleece this family into the reward money and take her along for the ride.
Yeah. And in a very real way, back to Sarah's whole, like, is he even a con man? He feels in some ways that this would be justified. Like, this is the family that did his right. Like, he would have no interest in this if it wasn't for the fact that, like, these are the people who made his father and therefore the lives of his family so miserable, so untenable. So it's a really quite a like setup, because it really, we can see the way in which Leo is kind of like, if this all works out, everybody comes out better off.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody.
Right.
Nobody loses. This is a situation where nobody loses. How lucky for me.
But of course,
they get
right.
They get their daughter back.
Yep.
She gets to be this heiress and live just a life that is unfathomable, and he gets the reward money.
Except once she's an heiress, she can't marry a con man. So what
This
will
is true.
happen?
This is true.
Oh, I love it. Oh God, I love it. I love revenge. I love it.
You do love revenge.
I love revenge.
I mean, it's the best. Yeah.
So the other thing that's really interesting and notable about this historical is that it is written in first person.
Yes.
So do you want to talk a little bit about what it was like to write historical in first person and why you felt it was the right thing for this particular story?
Well, I just kept thinking Jen is really going to love.
It wasn't
really
in present
love
tense, everybody, so it's fine.
person.
First person's fine. It's present tense, everyone.
How can I really
Like,
give
it's present
Jen a gift
tense
here?
It's present tense. Present tense is my problem.
Okay. Also, single POV is becoming your problem. But
oh, that's everybody's problem. Like, let's be for real.
But this is not single POV. This is dual POV.
Yeah.
I really felt, well, first of all, I think that is the way that the market just in general is trending in romance. I write the Finelli books in first person, dual POV. So I felt like it was something I wanted to try. I did ask my editor first, and she was like, great, go for it. And I think on some level, I have seen with the Finelli books that writing it in first person allows you to get away with things because you're in the criminal's head and they can justify what they're doing more than if you're perhaps in third person. So because I knew Leo was going to be a con man, I thought it made sense to try to do it in first person that perhaps the reader would empathize with him a little more because we're really deep in his perspective. So that's where I was coming from.
Yeah, I mean, because it's like if somebody is conning someone else or doing crime or doing wrong, right? Like being able to sort of really sink into like how they justify it or explain it to themselves or whatever, right? When I think of first person in a historical time setting, it does then require a kind of adherence to, I don't know, or fidelity to like language or kinds of ways of thinking. And like that, I think feels potentially intuitive, right? Like the world building ask, I think would be bigger in first person in a historical.
Oh, interesting.
And so I'm curious if you felt that way. And I guess what I mean by that is like, I'm going to tell an example. When I was in college, I was reading, I don't know, it's like the Nord anthology version of the Iliad, right? It's clearly in translation from the original Greek. Achilles calls Hector, tells him, whatever. So something about like your head's like empty like a wet noodle. And even I was like, would he say that? Come on. Right. And I feel like in in first person, right? Like slang, right? Like things that maybe would feel like normal in the voice of a character of that time frame are not going to like sort of sit the same way with like a reader now. You know what I mean? So like, how do you manage like writing a voice, right, that feels like it could be, you know, kind of right, that could like work for a reader in 2025, but also work for a character in 1878?
I think word choice it becomes really important, but you still want to make it accessible to anybody who's reading it now. So I think especially with characters that are not born wealthy, they probably sound a little more familiar to people today than the upper crust, which, you know, if you've watched HBO's The Gilded Age, you know, they do not speak with contractions, and they, you know, there is a, you know, words that even I have to go, holy shit, what did that mean? Like I have to go Google it, you know, because I don't know what they're talking about. But so I think the lower classes, their vernacular and their, you know, manner of speaking and the words they use, everything would feel a little more like what we know today. So I tried to make it not so I want to say erudite,
proper.
Yeah,
maybe,
right. Like
yeah,
just kind of bring it to something more recognizable that we would know. With, you know, obviously not using words that and phrases that weren't invented at the time, but yeah.
I mean, I think that's it. Like slang and other kinds of speech often have the in a historical, if it's in like first person, I guess, or in the person's like speech, will really send me off onto a, you know, I mean, there was a book and it was patois. A historical. Yeah, right. Where someone talked about like not wanting to beat a dead horse. And this was an upper class person and like a young woman. And I really was like, this was not in your book. And I was like, and I really like kind of like had to stop and think about it for a while. And I was like, okay, so did this phrase exist? Would this be a phrase, like if this was like a person who worked in a stable, maybe they would say like, right, like, is this a person familiar with horse racing? You know what I mean? Right. And so, I mean, I really did like find myself, and then I like literally never went back to the book. Like it stopped me in my tracks. So it's interesting to think about like world building. We're so used to like kind of the world building of a historical, but I think first person as a voice requires a kind of world building. Yeah. Maybe.
Well, you're also moving with beating a dead horse. You're moving into the Tiffany problem, right? Which is, people who, if you were to name a historical romance heroine Tiffany, everybody would be like, what the fuck? This is a crazy name for somebody in the 1800s. But the reality is like the Tiffany extends back to like the 1500s. Like it's been a name for many, many years. But like beating a dead horse is a thing, for example. And this is real historical problem now. Like we are.
Yeah, I would imagine. Right.
We struggle. I'm sure you do too, Joanna, but like I spent a lot of time going like, well, I know that's a legitimate phrase, but if I write it, are people going to be, am I going to get letters?
Right. Right.
You guys, I spent a lot of time going like, I just don't want the letters.
Well, it's hard because so many of those phrases are in our, I mean, we use every day. They're in our lexicon. I mean, you know, it's hard to think like, oh shit, like that, you know, that didn't exist back then, because it's just, sometimes if I miss it by a decade, I may let it slide.
Oh, for sure.
This week's episode of Fated Mates is brought to you by Maureen Lee Lenker, author of His Girl Hollywood.
All right, so this one is a second chance, but my favorite kind, because it's childhood friends to enemies-ish to lovers. So we know Maureen always sets her books against the kind of backdrop of the glittering silver screen of 1930s Hollywood. Arlene Morgan is our heroine, and she has always dreamed of being a movie director, like so many women in the silent film era. But when she finally gets her shot, which is incredibly rare, she also discovers that the leading man she's been assigned to because of the studio system is none other than Don Lamont, who she knows as Don Lazzarini, who was her next door neighbor growing up when they were in New York. And they were best friends. They had big dreams. They were going to stick together the whole time. Except suddenly, when they were a little bit older, he abandoned her to pursue a dance career in New York. And she never heard from him again. So she's pretty brokenhearted about that. Except here's the thing. He's had this immense Broadway success, but the reason why is because he's been under the thumb of his gangster manager for 8 years, and he hasn't been able to come home because he didn't want to get everybody from the block like back mixed up in his troubles. But now he's out in Hollywood, and he is clashing with Arlene, and he is finding that all those old wounds are coming back to the surface. And he's worried that if he gets too close to her, that gangster manager is going to get in the mix and things aren't going to go so well. So
Listen, I love a classic Hollywood historical. What a treat. So if you're interested in His Girl Hollywood, it is available in print, ebook, or audio, wherever books are sold. And you can click on the chapter title right now to be taken to buy the book. Thanks to Maureen Lee Linker for sponsoring this week's episode. In a historical written in third past, I'm maybe only going to really pay attention to the dialogue with that level of awareness, but in a book in first person, I'm also going to be thinking thinking about their thoughts in that way, maybe, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So it's the whole text then, not just the thing. And so I think, but at the same time, I would imagine that it was also probably really fun to inhabit a character in that way as well. Right? Like it's reward. It's like benefit and reward anytime you challenge yourself in a new way of writing.
Yeah. Did you feel like, what was that process for you? Like, did you feel like it was a natural move to first person, or were you constantly sort of reminding, like, I feel like in historical, it's so rare.
I feel like it was natural just because I've been writing the Finelli books that way, that I feel like I sort of get it and it works. And I just felt like I wanted to try it in historical, and because of the subject matter of the book, like I said, but it does change what the character sees in that respect. So like when they're writing the carriage and they're in New York for the first time, she is looking at the advertisements on the side of the buildings. Like it does change the level of minutia, I think, that the character sees and feels and smells and experiences.
Mm-hmm.
But I also found that I loved being able to sprinkle in little details, whereas in third person, perhaps I wouldn't have bothered to put that in.
Right. Yeah, that's really fun. Right. Like, right. What would Josie see or pay attention to versus what Leo would see or pay attention to? And then that becomes something really interesting about their characters. Did you love Anastasia? Is that why you started with Anastasia? I feel like that's like a really interesting, I love it.
So Anastasia was my editor's idea because she's a big fan of that. I do love it. I love the movie. I also really love the Lindbergh baby story. So like I'm just like a huge like Lindbergh baby true crime junkie.
Do you have a theory? Do you have a theory, Joanna Shupe?
I would make a terrible juror because I can be swayed by literally any argument. So I feel like
whatever you saw last.
Yes, I mean whatever. Like the last. I mean, I've seen so many heard so many theories, and usually, yeah. I don't know. I don't want to say because any other day it could change. But so for me, like I loved mixing Anastasia with the Lindbergh baby. That for me was like, and exploring, what would a lost heiress, what her life would be like and how weird it would be to come back and to come back to the fold, so to speak. So, yeah, but we can always discuss theories on the Lindbergh baby at a later time.
I don't think I only have the vaguest understanding of the Lindbergh baby story. So I'll have to do some research before I have a theory.
Well, do you want to give Joanna, why don't you give everybody like a little primer on the Lindbergh baby?
Oh, okay.
For those people who don't know.
Okay. So this is me assuming everybody knows history, and a lot of people probably don't know.
Little bit of history.
Yes, right. Okay, so Charles Lindbergh, who was a terrible person, Nazi sympathizer,
but also a good pilot.
A very good pilot, was the first one to circle the globe.
Yeah,
or the
that
first
sounds
one
right.
to do
sure. The Magellan of flight.
I don't know if he was the first one to circle the globe, but anyway, he was some important pilot. He was a big time celebrity, big time. Right around like the First World War-ish, I think, and had a child, was living out in the suburbs, and one night the baby disappears. There's a ladder outside the window. There is no sign of the child. The family calls the police, and the police completely bungle the investigation. I mean, any evidence is, stepped on or ruined, or, I mean, it's just a complete case study in how not to handle a police investigation. So the baby is missing for a long time. There's rewards that are offered up, and there's clues. And then and if you've ever seen or read Murder on the Orient Express by Agatha Christie, the crime is that the one? Isn't it Murder on the Orient Express, or is it Death on the Nile? That where it's set with the Lindbergh baby is like all the staff. Okay, you guys are both looking at me like I'm crazy. I'm really down.
I thought Murder on the Orient Express is the one where they isn't that like two strangers on a train kind of thing? Like where they agree to, I don't know.
It is. It is
Murder on the Orient Express. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So they are all staff members from this baby that was taken and killed. But anyway, to make a very long story even longer, the Lindbergh baby, the child was eventually found killed not far from the house, decomposed. There's never been a true answer to who perpetuated the crime, even though somebody was arrested for it, Bruno Hauptmann, who was a local low-level con artist. So, but there's a lot of proof that perhaps he didn't do it. So anyway, it's a very, very interesting case if you're a true crime fan.
Right.
That's the Lindbergh
I do like
baby.
a true crime where everybody's dead. It feels a little less icky for me, personally.
Yes.
Well, also, this is very old. It's like almost 100
That's
years
my point.
old, so.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Like there's no one left to be hurt.
Well, I thought you meant, I misunderstood. I thought you meant where the people in the true crime are all dead.
No, I mean like when people do it.
And I was like, Jen, it's a baby.
Looking into it. Yeah, that's what.
But now I understand. Now I'm on the level with you, Jen.
Listen, The Gilded Heiress is a really fun book, everybody. I think you'll have a great time. We haven't even really talked about the Broadway stuff, but that was some of my favorite parts of the book too. Like kind of like, what does it take to become like famous, and right, like sort of the whole, just because you have a skill doesn't mean you're going to be a star, and a lot of that kind of stuff that was also really fun outside of like sort of the plot about what's going to happen once Leo convinces his family that she is the Lindbergh baby, but not the Lindberghs. Okay. All right. So other books that you want to recommend, Sarah? I feel like I cut you off and I'm sorry.
Before we get to that, though, I want to talk about like on the level, when we're talking about criminals, like, what are our favorite kinds? Like, are we into, like, if we had to rank them, like, highwaymen, pirates?
I love a blackmailer.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. All right.
I love a blackmailer.
Okay.
I mean,
Con
Duke
artists are obviously terrific because they
Yes.
have like a very sharp brain. You want like somebody very smart.
I do love a like revenge fueled, some sort of theft fueled by revenge.
Like a heist, like an Ocean's 13 style.
Yeah, or like in Any Old Diamonds, where it's like in KJ Charles's Any Old Diamonds, he is essentially trying to like steal from one of the heroes is trying to like steal kind of from his own family. Right. And I do love that. So I do love it when the thievery has like an emotional component behind
Sure.
it besides just,
or like a
you know.
noble purpose, a noble
Yeah.
purpose
Like a
of,
con for love, a la Cressley Cole's The Player.
player.
My favorite of the Cressley Cole oeuvre.
yes. Yeah.
Mafia. Mafia light,
I
really,
will
I would say,
admit-
about those books. We don't really get into it.
You know what's funny is because you said pirates, and I read a lot of pirate books when I was
Yeah.
younger, but they are not my favorite now. I would not. It's been such a long time since I've read
tricky
them.
because I think for a long time pirates were big, and then pirates became tricky because of the time period and the whole like the trade,
The slave trade,
situation.
sure.
And then, and now we don't see that many pirates. Although Adriana recently wrote, well, I guess it's not really pirate; it's just like smugglers on a boat.
The bootleggers, yeah.
Bootleggers. See, I love a bootlegger. I mean,
Oh,
as we
yeah.
all know,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
love a clever smuggler.
You're avoiding taxes and tariffs. We like you.
Exactly. Everybody these days, I think
Just
we should all
common
be
sense.
avoiding taxes and tariffs. So, but then I think, and then it's like there was a shift in historicals. And when I started, people would say to you, like, put your characters on a boat, you're going to ruin your career. So it was like that serious. You just didn't, it was like having an orange cover. You just didn't get it.
In the Devil of Downtown and also the Bare Knuckle Bastards, I really like. We run this town, and then these are my people.
Yeah.
Right? There's like a kind of responsibility to the people
Sure. Fresh water, like fresh food.
Right.
Lemon
right.
sweets.
Yeah. You know, and like nobody's going to come for my people. And so I think that is often one of the things that I find really appealing.
But that's
is just like that idea.
That's that sense of like a scoundrel's code, right?
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah.
I will forgive Joanna's heroes in that Uptown Girl series, basically at anything, because they have a code where they protect their own.
Yeah, the bare knuckle bastards do the same thing.
Yeah. I mean, they're gonna rip the faces off of people, but not anybody they care about. And here's the thing, always up, always punching up. That's, I think, what it is about these criminals in a romance novel have to punch up.
For sure. They have to be out to get the establishment or somebody
Yep.
wealthier or more powerful or corrupt.
Louisa Darling's Scoundrel Take Me Away, which is just recently out, is about a highwayman who's also a duke who also has amnesia. Listen, it's
Amazing.
Joanna, it is so good.
It's really great. Yeah.
It's so good. But what's awesome about it is this guy's been a highwayman for 3 books, right? He's been sort of like shenaniganing in the background for 3 books. And we've always noticed that like he only steals from wealthy, titled people. And like the big question is like, what does he do with the money? Like, where does it go? Why does he do it? Especially when we find out that he is simultaneously a duke, right? Like, what's his game? And I think that's really like, listen, we all found our sexual awakening with that cartoon fox, and now here we are.
Hand to God, that is absolutely true. Absolutely true.
This week's episode of Fated Mates is brought to you by Lumi Gummies.
Consistent, mellow, and super delicious, Lumi gummies are specifically designed to make you feel good, not stoned. Whether you're looking for an end-of-day distressor, a midday mood boost, or help getting the best sleep ever, Lumi Gummies has a strain that is right for you. And I gotta tell you, for the last couple of weeks, I've been super sleepy in different time zones, looking for a de-stressor, flying, training, etc. And gummies have been a great help through a lot of that. And then what I would say is last night, so I got home and I took a gummy before I went to bed and I slept great.
See? I love it. Lumi Gummies are also available nationwide. Go to lumigummies.com, that's L-U-M-I gummies.com, and use the code FATEDMATES for 30% off your order. Lumigummies.com, code FATEDMATES is the way to get to this great, very chill, very mellow experience, whether you are traveling or just sitting at home. So if your podcasting app supports it and you click on the chapter title, we will take you to their site. Thanks to Lumi Gummies for sponsoring this week's episode. One of my favorite, like, contemporary scoundrels is Davy Dempsey in Faking It by Jenny Cruzy.
Yeah.
And one of the things that's so in this is a sequel, the second book in the series. The first one is called Welcome to Temptation.
One of my favorites.
And
Terrific.
right. Like, and in Welcome to Temptation, we meet the two sisters, right? Like the first sister, Sophie, and she and their family have like a whole like way in which they essentially con people. They're con artists. And, you know, it's like there's like these 5 things I can't remember. And she's like teaching it to Finn's daughter. And you sort of like realize this is like a family like deeply enmeshed in the idea of like conning. Like that's just how you get through.
Mm-hmm.
And in Faking It, we get their brother, Davy. And the thing that's really great is so we already are primed to like know and like the fact that he's a con man. And what happens is that he gets into a relationship with a woman named Matilda Goodnight, who owns an art gallery. And the thing that's really amazing, and I don't want to spoil it, even though this book is like 20 years old, probably, I don't want to spoil it because her family is also running a really long con, literally. And the reveal of like what her family is up to is probably like one of my favorite reveals in all of romance. And part of the reason that it's so great is because you get Davy, who's kind of like, oh, I see Goodnight Family. I was not familiar with your game. You know what I mean? And it is really like, I think, an example of like the exact kind of like, right? Like these are property crimes and you know what I mean? It's sort of like, doesn't feel like it's like hurting anybody. And this was right around like like 1999, it was like the Thomas Crown affair. There was like a bunch of books that were kind of about, or movies about like art heists and you know what I mean, things like that. And I really think that like Davy Dempsey and Matilda Goodnight, like this is a book, like we talk so often about Bet Me, but like this, I love this book. I love this book a lot. So it's like also I love like when like conning, you know, you can't con a con man, but somehow Davy, really is just sort of like, wait, I thought I was the baddest one in this block. And look what these folks are up to. I really loved it. So yeah, I would say that would be, if you're interested in like a contemporary, this would be these would be really fun to read.
Doesn't Kerrigan Byrne have a lot of criminal heroes?
The highwaymen, for sure.
The highwaymen.
Oh, yeah. And they're all wrapped in revenge, those books.
Nobody writes dark revenge criminal heroes like Kerrigan Byrne.
Here's the thing about Kerrigan's books. talk about somebody who takes the finger, like storytelling wise. Like Kerrigan has no fucks to give. Where any one of the rest of us would be like, that feels like it might be too much. Kerrigan's like, no, fuck you. I'm doing it. There is something very deeply lovely and old school about her books, despite them not being old school at all.
Right. And I'm sure you guys have talked about Duke of Sin a million times on the podcast, but that by Elizabeth Hoyt, that is, I mean,
Elizabeth Hoyt, sure.
Valentine is a blackmailer. I mean, I just love it. Like he has all the secrets from all the important families and he's blackmailing people. And then she gets, you know, a job to work in his household as his housekeeper. And I just love it.
How about mediums, fake mediums, Joanna Shupe, author of Baron.
Yes, she is a con artist.
She is a con artist. And I think there's like, this is one of those things that like, I love a fake medium because I love like the history of it, right? The sort of sense of like spiritualism and like how everything is, you know, I'm also a Peaky Blinders fan. So I love the whole like sense of like, is it real? Is it not? But then also this real sense of like, these people are going to take wealthy assholes for all they are worth. And I really enjoy that. That is essentially the plot of Baron.
Right.
Where
he sees right through her.
Yeah.
Also,
from the jump.
I love a hero who's a king.
And it's just he's just outraged that she is trying to fleece, you know, people by pretending to speak to the dead.
I mean, I will say this is one of those things where like it is a tricky listen, Baron is perfect. But I tried to write like one of my books had in an early draft had a kind of like she speaks to the dead fake, like she fake speaks to the dead to like punish somebody, and my editorial note was like, this is too mean. And I was like, okay, this is actually a really, really difficult needle to thread. So well done, Joanna Shupe. Somebody else who does this in a book is Kelly Bowen, who actually we recently talked about on the podcast, but her book, A Good Rogue is Hard to Find, is also a situation where the heroine, so there's like the hero comes home from like, he's a total scoundrel and like has basically like lived his life perfect. He's had everything just delivered to him on a silver platter. And he comes home to his like eccentric mother, and her companion is like, he's pretty sure she's fleecing his mother and like faking, you know, conning his mother. And then it becomes clear that actually what's happening is she and his mother are working together as like Lady Robin Hoods, and it makes him just like exasperated man is like really on.
I remember that.
Like,
oh my God,
like,
I love
it
it.
all comes back to me. Yeah.
Listen, Kelly Bowen knows what
amazing.
To do.
Yeah, if like a bunch of women are like doing some crimes together and nobody knows, I'm all for that for sure.
Yep. And he comes in and like blows it all. Like he threatens the whole plan. And she's like, you fucking dummy. We're busy here. It's great. So I want to shout out lady con artists who are also speaking to the dead.
Cat Sebastian has The Perfect Crimes of Marion Hayes.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Which is
listen, Cat Sebastian loves people.
Yeah,
who are
right. Like a caper,
doing a
like
little light crimes. Like
hero is a blackmailer. I mean, it's a theme, and a con man and a highwayman, and he's blackmailing her, the heroine, and so she shoots her husband and has to go on the run, and so she kidnaps this con man to help her, and hijinks ensue. It's delightful.
Perfect. I gotta shout out Stacey Abrams on the con artist front too, because Selena Montgomery's Hidden Sins, which is my favorite Selena Montgomery book, is a contemporary, but the premise is the hero is a forensic, like a guy who, like a forensic anthropologist who's been brought in because there have been like many, many, many murders. All of the Selena Montgomery books, I'm pretty sure all of them are romantic suspense. And there have been all these murders, and there are, I don't know, some number, like a lot of bodies for years and years, and they're all connected to a like particular church that was once headed by the heroine's father, and he comes in to like find her and discovers that the heroine has been like basically like running scams and conning people as like a good girl, like the preacher's daughter for like her whole life. And now he finds her sort of in a very sort of perfect moment where she is in hiding, and he's like, I need you to help me figure out like how all these dead bodies have been connected to this church and like who's been doing this. And she's like, well, I'm not going to help. And he's like, well, too bad, because I actually know who's chasing you, and I know that you've been scamming all these people. So it's like a sort of very classic structure for a hero and a heroine in a romantic suspense. And I mean, it's written by Stacey Abrams, so that lady can do the logic required to make that book great.
It's funny because I think that I obviously like really love like a mafia romance. And I feel like that's almost like a different bucket though, right? Like these I think of are like, this is like the light crimes. It's a little light crime. Little like a light kidnapping, you got a light crime. It's like a property crime only.
Still require you to be able to put a fist through a face, but yes.
Yeah, but I'm just trying to think about like, like we've had a mafia episodes, you know what I mean? Like it's a little harder sometimes to think about like what are the kinds of crimes, if I was talking about them, I could only talk about them here,
Yeah.
I'm fascinated by the like, you love blackmail though. I feel like now that's like really has my brain buzzing. Like if I read a great blackmailer.
Blackmail's so hard because
blackmail's hard.
You have to, because obviously in a romance, like the blackmail has to be, it feels like they have to be blackmailing each other.
Yeah. I mean, it's really terrible. I mean, it's
or like you blackmail the bad guys, I guess.
I think in Duke of Sin, he is so delightfully terrible that it works because he's just so delightful and terrible all the way around. And
yeah, right. He doesn't care.
Yeah.
I do think that in order for these books to work, these characters have to really not care. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like if they are feeling guilty themselves, well, then I just don't want it.
Yeah. And I think there's always a lot of humor layered into a lot of them. Like they're written kind of zany, madcappy, humorously to try to
like soften that a little bit. Yeah.
Make them more likable, maybe.
Jen, what has good blackmail in it is that Natasha Anders book you really like. She blackmails him.
Oh, the unwanted wife.
Yep.
Have you ever read that, Joanna?
Oh, Joanna, you would like that one.
Oh, I'm writing it down.
Oh my God, the angst is really unparalleled. Like basically the book starts with her being like, our marriage is over and he has just been terrible to her. And he has to suffer the entire book once he realizes, oh my God, I've been terrible to her. It's great.
Ooh. So marriage in trouble plus blackmailing? What? Marriage in trouble?
It is marriage in trouble. I mean, like, she's basically like, I want a divorce. And he's like, no. So, yeah. And then they end up together. So that's how that goes. And then she does, though. She blackmails him into.
Yeah, I think she wants to have a baby, maybe.
Yeah, I can't remember.
Oh, I'm excited to read it.
Blackmail for a baby, though, that is a thing that periodically turns up, especially in the presents world.
Well, even in historicals, where they like, what Sherry Thomas book is that I love, where she wants a divorce and he basically says, I won't, give me a child and then I'll give you a divorce. It's not His at Night. It's oh, I can't remember, but it's my very favorite Sherry Thomas book, where it's just enemies to lovers and they just hate fuck through the whole book.
A lot of your mafia books sort of traffic in this, like, I'll hurt your sister or your dad or whatever. So
For sure.
You're gonna
Right,
have to bury me.
For sure.
You're gonna have to let me fuck you into oblivion. It's so hard for them.
guess.
It's so hard for them.
I will put you in a cage if you do not. Anyway,
That did happen, everybody. That did happen.
It was great. You're gonna love it. I do think that you're right that I think pirates sort of live separate from this too, in a certain sense. But I also just have to sort of say out loud that if you haven't read, and this one is very old school, everybody. So just, I don't know, check your content warnings, go into it eyes wide open, because it was published in like the 80s or 90s. But The Windflower, which is Laura London, who is that married couple who wrote, I can never remember their names, but it's a married couple, and they wrote as Laura London, and they wrote this book called The Windflower. And the premise is the heroine, like, it's set in revolutionary America. He and his like band of scoundrels are on the run. She is a remarkable artist, and she has sketched all of their wanted posters. And then she like lands on their ship by accident, and they think this is a chaotic, like 700-page long book. It's epic. You're going to love it. But basically it's like she turns up on the ship, and they think of course that she is a sex worker, like, that they've stolen from his criminal like enemy. But then like ultimately it becomes clear that she knows all of these scoundrels because she has drawn them all in wanted posters. It's very clever. It's very funny. And then like the hero is like a massive, massive, like classic old school hero, just like so impenetrable and so mean. Who like threatens her with every possible terrible thing. But at the same time, she's like then beloved by all the men on this ship, and like all these criminals now like think of her as their like pet and their like favorite woman. And I'm sure, I don't remember this, but I'm certain it has some thread of like, women on ships are bad luck, let's throw her overboard. I mean, you're gonna get the whole vibe here.
Sometimes when we talk about things like this, I approach it from like, okay, who's like one of my favorite authors, and then like who's their criminal, you know what I mean? And then I had this moment where I was like, maybe this is like balls, Sarah. Some people write them and some people don't. And
Jed means testicles.
I do mean testicles. Everybody a lady came up to Sarah once and was like, you don't write balls, but Testadare does. And Sarah was like,
It was framed as, do you know what the difference is between you and Testadare? And I wanted to be like, yes, I do. I know a lot of the
but what
differences.
do you think is the difference?
And that was the difference?
It's that
Testicles?
Tessa writes balls and I don't. And you know what? I don't. And I stand by it. Oh, but for sure, some people write criminals and some people don't. Like, some people have a
like, so
criminal
that's what I was
king,
thinking. Yeah.
Joanna and me. And some people
Correct.
don't.
But I was like, does Julie Garwood? She does not.
No, she does not. Judith McNaught, not really.
Right?
But Jude Devereaux.
100%.
But Jude Devereaux. But Joanna Lindsay.
Oh, yeah.
But wait, Beverly Jenkins wrote A Con Artist.
Yeah, now the
And
thing
a
though that's
pirate.
interesting is, yeah, but here's the thing I would say is really different. When you are writing characters that are already sidelined in society, society is never going to. What is the point of following society's rules if those rules aren't going to like reward or benefit you? So, when you get Beverly Jenkins having characters who are, sort of making those choices, often it's not really driven by the same thing.
Yeah.
right? And so that's why, like, I was kind of thinking, like, you know, I'm talking about a bunch of white people here, but like, there's a reason, right? Like, what is the, you know, if you're a preacher who is one of my favorites of Beverly Jenkins' books, and he's okay, I don't remember actually that he's like a criminal, but like, there's no point in further putting these people outside of society because society has already, in a historical, said to a lot of these characters, and then these are characters who are successful outside of the rules that like reward white people.
Yes,
right. So
of
it is
course.
kind of an interesting thing to think about. Like, it's, you know, it's just like a different, it feels to me like almost like a totally different conversation.
Right.
Yeah.
So
agreed.
right. But like Christina and Lauren, for example, have flat out said, I think publicly, that like one of the reasons they really had fun writing something wilder is it was like the first time that there was like a body count on page.
Yeah. It gave them they were free for a moment.
Right. To like kind of write something that they'd never really written before. And I think that is just always really interesting. Is like, what is the, you know, what is the thing that you can write or not write, and why?
Yep.
For a lot of different reasons.
Sarah will never write spies.
She will not. Not in a romance. That's for sure. If the titles of those books, the Beverly Jenkins books that I was talking about. So Destiny's Captive is the famous one because the cover's great.
It's great.
Yeah. Oh my God. But Captured also has a pirate captain. And To Catch a Raven, she literally is a con artist who is like roped into stealing a copy of the Declaration of Independence, which is, I mean, I think this book is exactly a perfect example of what historical romance can and should do.
Yeah, he's a bounty hunter. That's what it is in Nighthawk.
Oh, yeah. Interestingly, bounty hunters kind of also like,
Oh, yeah.
like living outside I know what we haven't talked about, Jennifer is motorcycles.
MC.
Yeah. Well,
those guys are criminals.
Straight up.
Well, you know, my working theory is that like the difference between mafia and motorcycle club is just that, like, in one set of books they wear suits.
Leather jackets versus suits.
Sure. That's the only difference in romance. I don't know. In real life, simply not my business.
In real life, the mafia is nothing like Joanna's mafia. So.
Correct.
Anyway.
The Sherry Thomas book that I was referencing is Private Arrangements.
Oh, of course.
Which is, I mean.
Yeah.
The best.
So good. No, but now that you've said that, Jen, that some of us write criminals and some of us don't.
You're going to be thinking about it.
Yeah, it's like Eloisa James does not. Julia Quinn does not.
Julia Quinn does not, right?
Oh, no,
right.
Never. Like, never.
But like Jenny Cruzy does. I mean, like, there's the one where he's like a contract killer or whatever, right? The one with Alice and Shane.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think that's it. I think maybe this is just like one of those things where you're into it or you're into it or
you're into it or you're not. It's true.
And we're into it.
Unabashedly. I don't care. But it's interesting because there is a line for me. Like at some point I do get to, oh no, this is too much crime.
Or too terrible a crime.
I don't know. Do I? I don't. Listen, I probably don't, honestly.
I think there's a
line
ways.
where he's doing too much crime to her. That for sure. But is there a point where, like, I mean, I don't know. I read that Butcher and Blackbird book, start to finish.
I didn't.
Jen always feels like she has to qualify that she has not read that book. Everyone knows, Jen.
My point is readers too, right? I mean, I think, you know, when Joanna was talking about her readership earlier, like, I think that they're like, and it was helpful for me to be like, property crimes, fine. Crimes against people, much less likely to work for me. Crimes against a heroine, absolutely fucking not. We're done. I mean, so I think that that's the thing. It's like, right? Like, and luckily, if there's vectors for all of us. So lots of books being published all the time, by all different kinds of people. But yeah. Oh, wait. So will you talk about your book tour as we wrap up? Because this is everybody, this episode Joanna's book is coming out next Tuesday. You can pre-order it now, but you will be on book tour, and including with me in Chicago. So why don't you talk about people where they can see you if around town in the next week or so?
Yeah, so I'm going on August 26th to St. Louis to the Novel Neighbor with Liana de la Rosa, who also has a book coming out on August 26th, Gabriella and His Grace. Then we're going to Kansas City to not the last chapter. That's Chicago. Under the Cover in Kansas City with Sierra Simone and Liana de la Rosa. Then I'm going on August 28th. This is going great. I know all of these dates off the top of my head. Whatever that. So August 20.
Yeah, 8th in Chicago.
Chicago, Under the Cover with you. Then
I'm inviting my coworkers to these things now.
You can't be more embarrassed by Joanna than I did.
September 3rd, I'm in Philly. September 4th, I'm in DC with Diana Quincy. Philly is Scarlett Scott at Cupid's Bookshop. Then Diana Quincy at East Coast Books. Then I'm at the Rip Bodice in Brooklyn.
East City?
What did I say?
You said East Coast. Is it East City Bookshop?
East City.
Okay.
You guys.
I know.
I have
It's
Poison
hard.
Ivy. Did I mention it?
It's true. You have been you know what? Considering we kept you yapping for like an hour and a half.
And the 9th, September 9th, I'm at the Rip Bodice with Adriana and Sarah.
You guys, I saw that and was like, why don't I live there?
Because
What is wrong with me?
You live in Chicago, which is a very nice city. Listen, I've been watching a lot of The Bear this week. And every time there's an establishing shot of Chicago in The Bear, I say to Eric, Chicago's a very nice city. And last night he was like, yeah, you've said that. It is. It's just
the best.
It's empirically a very beautiful city. So.
When Sarah and Joanna and Adriana are going to be someplace and I am not, what it is very far away.
It's very
from that
far
place.
away. It's true.
Oh,
Anyway.
That's so exciting. Well, I cannot wait. So everybody, we'll put the links to that in show notes so that you can, some of these places, it's like get a ticket, get the book. Some places I was looking are just sort of register. So we'll put that in show notes. So everybody, yeah, we'd love to see you out.
Joanna, the narration for the book, is it dual?
it is dual.
Nice. People are going to be very happy about that.
It is dual. Yeah, I'm excited.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. As always, we love having
Thanks
you.
for having me.
We love having you.
I love
Come
seeing
anytime.
both your faces.
Everybody, I'm Sarah McLean. I'm here with my friends Jen Prokop and Joanna Shupe. We are Fated Mates. You can listen to us every Wednesday wherever you get your podcasts. Or you can find us online at fatedmates.net. When you're there, you can click on episodes and you'll get show notes. We'll list every book that we referenced over the course of this episode, which we've talked about a lot of books like kind of interior to the conversation, so head to see the full list there. You can also find us online on Instagram and Threads as Fated Mates Pod, on Blue Sky as Fated Mates. And if you really love listening to people talk about romance and history and romance stuff, head over and join the Patreon, which will give you access to the Discord, where about 1,000 other romance lovers are talking about romance all the time. You can do that at fatedmates.net/Patreon. Other than that, election day is coming up. The election season is coming up. We are starting to raise some money to hold Virginia local elections blue for Democrats. You can learn more about that at fatedmates.net/fatedstates. We are working with the States Project to make sure that we keep local elections for Democrats up and down the line. We have one more week, and then we're taking 2 weeks off, and then it's season 8. Can you believe it? These dummies.
I cannot.
Still listening to us. Thanks for joining us, Joanna.
Thanks for having me.